Clint Eastwood sat at the piano, played the first note, and Johnny Carson's eyes filled with tears because that melody brought back a story no one had known for 15 years. It was March 1982. The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson was broadcasting from Studio 6B in Burbank, California. It was another Thursday night, a night that promised to be as ordinary as the others on late-night television. Clint Eastwood was the guest, the biggest action star in Hollywood, the man with no name, the tough guy who rarely showed emotion either on screen or off. The interview had gone well, with that easy chemistry Johnny and Clint had, exchanging anecdotes about film shoots and laughing at the absurdities of Hollywood. It was the kind of relaxed conversation that made television great. The audience was hooked, laughing at all the right moments. Johnny was glancing at his cue cards, preparing to end the segment and go to a commercial break when something caught his attention. On the stage, placed near the curtain, there was a grand piano. It had been there all night as part of the set decoration, occasionally used by musical guests, but mostly just a background element. Johnny looked at it, then looked back at Clint, and a mischievous expression crossed his face. It was the kind of look that meant he was about to do something spontaneous. "Clint," Johnny said, leaning back in his chair with his characteristic smile, "I have to ask you something. Do you know how to play the piano?" Clint seemed surprised by the question. "A little." "Why?" "Because," Johnny gestured toward the piano with a theatrical flourish, "we have a perfectly good instrument sitting there doing nothing, and I'm curious, can the toughest guy in the movies play something soft?" The audience laughed. It was Carson at his best, turning a simple question into a playful challenge. Ed McMahon chuckled beside the desk. Doc Severinsen and the band looked amused. Clint smiled, that rare and genuine smile he almost never showed in his films. "You really want me to play something?" "Come on," Johnny insisted. "Show America that Dirty Harry has a sensitive side." More laughter. Clint looked at the piano, then at Johnny, clearly considering whether it was a good idea. Then he stood up. The audience applauded as Clint crossed the stage toward the piano. He sat on the bench, adjusted it slightly, and placed his hands on the keys. He looked at Johnny with a faint smile. "Any requests?" Clint asked. "Surprise me," Johnny said, still smiling, perhaps expecting a simple melody, a few chords, something light and fun. Clint's fingers touched the keys, and everything changed. Johnny stopped in the middle of a joke. The entire studio froze. The melody that emerged from that piano was not simple, not light. It was painfully beautiful, slow, melancholic, strangely familiar in the way old songs are, like something half remembered from childhood. Clint played with genuine skill. His fingers moved over the keys with practiced precision. His eyes closed. His whole body relaxed in the music. This was not a movie star doing a party trick. This was a real musician playing something that clearly meant a great deal to him. Johnny's smile faded. His hands, which had been holding his cue cards, slowly lowered to the desk. His expression shifted from amused to captivated, and then to something deeper, something the audience could not identify but could feel. Ed McMahon noticed it too. He leaned slightly toward Johnny, concerned. "Johnny," he said quietly. Johnny did not respond. He was looking at Clint, at the hands creating that unexpected beauty, and his eyes were filling with tears. The control room fell silent. The director, Bobby Quinn, leaned toward his monitors. "He's crying, Johnny," he whispered to Fred de Cordoba. Fred nodded slowly. "Keep the cameras on him. Something is happening." The audience had stopped their polite applause. They were in complete silence, sensing that the moment had transformed into something else, something unplanned, something real. Some watched Clint Eastwood play. Most watched the face of Johnny Carson. They saw the tears form and begin to slide down his cheeks. Subscribe if you like the video, because what comes next is the heart of this story. To understand what was happening, you have to understand what occurred in 1967. Johnny Carson was not always the unshakable king of late-night television. In 1967, 5 years after he began hosting The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, he had success, but he was struggling on a personal level. His second marriage was falling apart. His relationship with his children was tense. The pressure of doing the show 5 nights a week, of always being on, of being America's comedian, while dealing with private pain was crushing him. He had begun seeing a therapist quietly, in secret, because in 1967 successful men did not talk about mental health, did not admit they were struggling, did not show weakness. The therapist's name was Dr. Margaret Brennan. She was in her 60s. She was brilliant, kind, and had an unusual method for helping patients access difficult emotions. She used music. "You joke to survive," she told Johnny during a session. "You have built this armor of humor, and it is necessary. It is how you do your job. But you need a place where you can take off that armor, where you can feel what you are really feeling." She had a piano in her office, an old upright piano. She asked Johnny to sit beside her while she played. "I'm going to play something," she said, "and I want you to just listen. Do not joke, do not deflect, just stay with whatever arises." She played a melody, the same melody Clint Eastwood was playing at that moment on the stage of The Tonight Show. 15 years later, Johnny sat in that therapist's office, and, for the first time in years, he cried. He truly cried. It was not the performative emotion he could summon for a sketch, but genuine pain for his failed marriage, for his distant children, for the loneliness of being Johnny Carson. "This is your song now," Dr. Brennan told him when he had composed himself. "Every time you need to remember that it is okay to feel, to be sad, to be human, remember this melody. It is permission to stop performing." Johnny saw Dr. Brennan for 3 years. She helped him through his divorce, helped him reconnect with his children, helped him understand that he could be both Johnny Carson the performer and John William Carson the human being. She died in 1975, a sudden and unexpected heart attack. Johnny received the news while he was preparing for the show. That night he did the monologue anyway. He made America laugh for 90 minutes and never mentioned that he had lost someone who had saved his life. He had not heard that melody again since his last session in 1970. He never asked what it was called, never tried to find it. It was hers, a gift she had given him, and he kept it with all the other private things he never spoke about in public until this night, March 1982, when Clint Eastwood sat at the piano and unknowingly played Dr. Brennan's song. Clint was still playing. The melody continued, each note perfect, each phrase building on the last. He had no idea what was happening at Johnny's desk. He was lost in the music and in whatever memories or emotions it evoked. Johnny wiped his eyes quickly, but the tears kept coming. The cameras remained on him, close-ups showing America's most composed performer completely undone by something as simple as a piano melody. Ed McMahon leaned in and gently touched Johnny's arm. "Are you okay, my friend?" he whispered again. Johnny nodded, but he did not speak. He could not speak. When Clint played the final note, letting it sustain and fade into silence, the studio remained still. No one applauded. No one moved. Everyone was watching Johnny. Clint opened his eyes and turned on the piano bench to face him. He saw the tears immediately. His expression shifted from peace to concern. "Johnny," Clint said, "did I do something wrong?" Backstage, the production crew held their breath. No one knew what to do. Live television was unpredictable, but this was unprecedented. The director, Bobby Quinn, motioned desperately for the cameras to hold the shot. And then Johnny made a decision no producer would ever have allowed. Johnny stood up. He did not say anything to Ed, did not look at the cameras, did not acknowledge the audience or the control room, which was frantically trying to figure out what to do. He simply walked across the stage toward the piano, where Clint was still seated. The cameras followed him. The audience held its breath. Johnny stood beside the piano, looking at the keys, at Clint's hand still resting on them. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "What song was that?" Johnny asked. "It does not have a name," Clint said quietly. "It is something my piano teacher composed when I was a child. She used to play it at the end of every lesson. She said it was to remember, for when you needed to stop and feel something real." Johnny's breath caught. "Your piano teacher?" "Yes, Mrs. Brennan. Margaret Brennan taught me from age 8 to 16. She died a few years ago. When you asked me to play, I do not know why, but that was the melody that came to mind. I had not played it in years." The studio was absolutely silent. Even the control room had stopped speaking. Fred de Cordoba stood behind Bobby Quinn's chair with a hand over his mouth, understanding dawning on his face. Johnny looked at Clint. Margaret Brennan taught you piano in Oakland? Yes. She was incredible. She taught music to neighborhood children who could not afford lessons. She changed my life. Clint paused. You knew her. But this was the moment no one in the studio, and no one at home, saw coming. Johnny sat on the piano bench beside Clint. Right there, on live television, Johnny Carson sat at the piano with Clint Eastwood and began to cry uncontrollably. She was my therapist, Johnny said, his voice breaking. From 1967 to 1970, she played this song for me in her office when I was falling apart. She told me it was permission to be human, permission to stop performing and just feel. Clint's eyes widened in astonishment. Margaret was your therapist. She saved my life, Johnny said simply. And I never got to thank her properly. When she died, I could not talk about it. I could not explain to anyone what she meant to me, because I had never told anyone I was in therapy. And now here you are, sitting here playing her song. And he stopped, overcome with emotion. Clint placed his hand on Johnny's shoulder. Two of Hollywood's most famous and reserved men sat together at a piano on live television, connected by a woman who had touched their lives decades apart. She spoke about you sometimes, Clint said quietly. She never said your name, but she told me about a student she had who made people laugh. She said making people laugh was the hardest job in the world because you had to feel everything but only show joy. She was very proud of that student. Johnny covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. The camera stayed on them, that impossible moment of vulnerability and connection. Ed McMahon rose from his chair and approached. He placed his hand on Johnny's back without saying anything, simply being present. Doc Severinsen stepped down from the bandstand and joined them. The entire studio seemed to gather around that piano, not physically but emotionally, all witnessing something sacred. After a long moment, Johnny lowered his hands, looked at the piano keys, and then at Clint. Would you teach me to play it? Johnny asked. The whole song, so I can play it myself. Right now, Clint asked. Right now. And there on The Tonight Show, in front of 300 people in the audience and millions watching from their homes, Clint Eastwood taught Johnny Carson how to play Margaret Brennan's song. It took 20 minutes. The show ran long. They skipped commercial breaks. The control room gave up trying to get them back on schedule. Clint played a phrase and then guided Johnny's fingers to the correct keys. Johnny stumbled, made mistakes, tried again, like a child learning piano for the first time. The audience watched in reverent silence. Some were crying. Most were simply absorbed in the intimacy of the scene, watching two legends be completely and utterly human. When Johnny finally played the entire melody, imperfectly, slowly but fully, the eruption in the studio was not the typical Tonight Show applause. It was something deeper, cathartic, the kind of applause that honors courage. Johnny and Clint stood and embraced, a long and genuine embrace between two men who had found an unexpected connection through a melody and a woman who had shaped their lives. Thank you, Johnny whispered, for giving her back to me. She would be proud of you, Clint whispered. She always was. The audience rose to its feet in unison, a standing ovation not for entertainment, but for having witnessed something real. Johnny turned toward the camera, wiping his eyes. We will be right back, he said, and for once his voice was not steady. It was simply human. Share and subscribe so this story is never forgotten. After the show, Johnny had the piano moved to his office. He practiced Margaret Brennan's melody every day for the next 10 years until he retired. He never mastered it, but that was not the point. When Clint Eastwood directed his first film about music years later, he dedicated it to Mrs. B. Johnny sent him a handwritten note that simply read, "She is still teaching us." The melody was never forbidden again. It was permission to feel. Always subscribe if you like the video. And do not forget to activate the bell for more stories like this. Yeah,